Good afternoon, good evening, and good morning, everyone. I am Dr. Jerry Johnson, the creator of Common Sense Co-Parenting. If you have joined me before, you know what I talk about. I talk about co-parenting, and my mission is to assist parents with navigating the complexities of co-parenting with collaboration, with, let's say, communication, a little bit of compassion as well. Um, Actually, just focusing on creating a nurturing environment for the child or the children above all else. So, I want to welcome you to tonight's episode, and I have a special guest. For the first time, I have a guest, guys. I am not by myself, and you get to hear another voice other than mine tonight. So, our conversation tonight is going to be on the topic of what do you think, or how would you describe your co parenting relationship to somebody? Really, it doesn't matter what you think because what really matters is how your children are experiencing the co-parenting relationship. That's what matters. And if you've been on my show before, you have heard me say, in some ways, we all mess up our children. We all mess up our children because we are human beings and we only know how to parent based on how we were parented. And we choose, do we want to go along with their parenting style or do we not want to go along with their parenting style? And sometimes we have to make a way, and sometimes we fall back into those old patterns of how we were raised. That doesn't always work for our children. So, this is why I have my daughter on tonight because I want to hear her view of what the co parenting relationship between her father and I was like for her. This is what really matters, guys. This is where the rubber meets the road. So we can think that our co-parenting relationship is fantastic, or we can think it's totally jacked up. But our children are going to be the ones that tell us what it really is. And you have to have the intestinal fortitude, as I say. You have to have the stomach for what it is they come back and say to you. It's just like with anybody, being honest. Okay. So I'm going to go ahead and start the show because we're going to do this in two segments. I have a lot to talk to my daughter about. And I'm sure that you guys want to hear this. And she's laughing because she already knows that it's about to go down. It is about to go down. So, sweetie, if you want to go ahead and introduce yourself for the audience, that would be great.
Hi, I'm Ashlyn Wiley. I recently graduated from the University of Houston in spring 2024 with my bachelor's in kinesiology, fitness, and sports with a minor in nutrition. I also with the Zeta Sigma chapter of Delta Sigma Theta Sorority Incorporated in fall 2022. I am currently a kindergarten teacher with KIPP, Texas, but I plan on starting a master's in athletic training program in the summer of 2026. And most importantly, I am Dr. Johnson's daughter. So that is why we are here today.
Yes, thank you so much. And thank you for being my first guest on the show. But I really think that people are going to enjoy the information that you're going to give them. Now, as co parents, sometimes we know we mess up, sometimes we know we don't want to admit that we mess up. And as co parents, even if you are in, remember, even if you are in a marital relationship and not divorced or just baby mama, baby daddy, you are still co-parenting a child, whether it's under one roof or not. So we really need to get feedback from our children along the way as to how we're doing. It's just like having a job, right? When
Mhm.
people give you feedback of your performance, you're supposed to go change it, tweak it, or implement it, as they said, to make you better. So just because our kids are kids does not mean they don't have wisdom that we need to listen to. So, as you know a little bit about my co-parent, see y'all, she got her own life. So this is an adult child. So that I have to talk to her like a normal guest. So, you know a little bit about my co parenting framework, common sense co parenting. And in my framework, I talk about 5 characteristics, which all of my podcasts up until this point have been the 5 characteristics that I've talked about, giving parents strategies and then actions for what they could do in the areas of communication, collaboration, confrontation, cadence, and consistency. So within those 5 characteristics, what do you think, which one do you think kind of resonates with you more? What did you experience, or what events did you experience more within those characteristics? Like if you were to choose one characteristic, which one would kind of pop out at you more?
Probably collaboration and consistency, like for like I guess what I actually saw was probably collaboration and consistency.
Okay, how so?
Collaboration, I mean, from what I think anybody around me and myself could see is that y'all were fine. So, and obviously, my dad is still cool with our side of the family. Obviously, you are good with his side of the family. You and my stepmother, Stacy, you guys get along swimmingly. So I feel like and within family relations, at least, like collaboration has always been great, not even just from you all, but even Stacy, TT, Granny collaborating and making things work for you all and for me. Um, I don't think has ever been at least has not ever seemed like a problem. I know there obviously has been, but this has never, in the overall scheme of things, seemed like a problem. Um, and again, consistency, like I had a consistent schedule. Um, I knew who I was going to be with when, and things like that. It wasn't like I was 1 week with you for 2 days, him for 5, then it switched 3 and 4. Like it wasn't switching. So I think you guys tried to make sure that I had a consistent, I knew what was going to happen when, so I didn't feel like my life was always, I didn't know what was going to happen week to week.
Okay, so then how did you feel about the family piece? Because I talked in the last episode about really about and the episode before that. The last 2 episodes were about consistency and how people in even in the family need to have some
Mhm.
emotional and mental stability because they are modeling for your child as well. So, how did you feel about the family collaboration and consistency piece?
I think overall good. Like I'm trying to look back on things like obviously things I'm an adult now, crazy to say, but I'm an adult now. So it's not like there has to be much family interaction anymore because it's not like you all are trading me off. He's getting me from Granny's house, anything like that. But even still to this day, everything is great. It's not like I went to college and then all of a sudden both sides didn't talk anymore. Obviously, your sister and my father talk about an espresso and everything almost every week. So, and my dad and Stacy came out to Jacqueline's graduate, like her senior night, Jaden's senior night. So they still see him as an uncle and things like that. So I think we've kept an overall as best as you could, as I've seen, you've seen, and we know it could be a lot worse. So I will I will take it. I think overall we've had a pretty good collaboration unit as a family and still do to this day. So
Tell people a little bit about because people don't and people never believe me when I say that your father travels with my family.
oh yeah, we went to Hawaii. We went to San Francisco and Hawaii. Um, what year was that? I think that was my seventh grade. I was in
And
seventh.
where was I?
You were in St. Louis.
Right.
Yeah, yeah. No, yeah, that was interesting. Um yeah. That was my first fam because at that point in time we'd basically gone on family trips every year. My mom and her sister would collaborate to make we would go somewhere. So they would always see where us three, my cousins and I wanted to go, and they would just try to make something work. But that was the first year that my mom couldn't go with us. I think that was the first year. Or was New York the
Hmm.
first year?
Yeah, that was the first year.
That was the first year she couldn't go. And so I was a little nervous. I mean, obviously that's my family, but I was like, I'm used to having my mom, like her in the hotel room, like we could, go do some other stuff if we didn't want to do what they wanted to do, whatever. Um, and so then my dad was like, I'll go. It's like, oh, okay. It's a little weird, but okay. So it was literally my entire mom's like immediate, because the whole family is huge, but the immediate side of the family. So, your sister, Uncle Julian, their children, my cousins, Granny Papa, your parents, then my uncle's sister and his wife, and her husband, and then Mama. I think Mama was there.
Hmm.
So literally our side of the family and my uncles, basically, and then my dad. Um, yeah. So that was interesting because I also had only been on maybe like I think I've only been on trips with like my dad and
Yeah.
Stacy, my stepsister. So also just traveling with my dad, period. And then combining, um, good old time. It was just different. But yeah, it still went well. But yeah, and then like both of my cousins' senior nights, him and my stepmother came. My mother was not there. Like senior night, I didn't get a chance to go to, but him and my stepmother were there. And neither my mother and I were there. So he does travel with the family. So so yeah. And I think he talks to my aunt more than I do on a weekly basis. So,
Yeah. He talks to her more than I do.
yeah, I think we talk like literally almost every week. Even when I went back, he was like, "Yeah, I just talked to Uncle Julian." And I was like, "Okay." So, okay. So, yeah.
Yeah. So if you guys didn't hear that, my ex-husband typically probably talks to my family more than I talk to my family.
Yeah. Yeah, I think so.
And is a part of it, it also is that he is in the same state with my parents. My parents are still back in Missouri, but he also talks to my brother-in-law and my sister more than I
Yeah.
do. And they have now moved here to Texas from California. So, yeah. So, it's an interesting dynamic. I wanted you guys to hear from my daughter and
Yeah.
not just from me because people don't believe me when I say that we have gotten into such a rhythm with our co-parenting while she was growing up that now as she is an adult child of ours, it has not stopped. Like the relationships that were built has not stopped, and they shouldn't have to. Like you should not have to detach from your significant other's family just because you guys aren't together. You know, that still can provide healthy relationships for your child, but you yourself as the adult have to be healthy
Hmm.
because it took a lot in me many times to not sever, a relationship either with someone on his side or him still talking to my family. Boundaries had to be set on certain conversations and things like that. And that was on me to do that. So you have to be able to have tough conversations in the midst of this as well. And those conversations are what benefits your child. Okay. It doesn't benefit me for him to talk to my sister and my brother in law more than me. Okay. It doesn't benefit, that doesn't benefit me in any way, but it does give them still a relationship that I didn't try to sever and say, because we're not together, y'all can't talk. No, man, that's crazy. You don't have to do all of that. Like, people can still have relationships and friendships outside of that. And it gives the child an example of what healthy relationships actually can look like so that they know growing up. This doesn't have to be toxic. You don't have to, cut off people, ghost people or whatever just because you're not with them. That sets an example for the child for what they are going to do in relationships. And it doesn't always have to be like that. You need to get yourself healthy first before you can actually navigate something like that. So, Ash, thank you for that. And how can you answer another question for me of like, what do you remember about how our co-parenting relationship started? What do you remember?
When you all divorced, I was like months old. So like I really don't I have no reference of y'all being together. So that's different than like some people I know. They were maybe like 6 or 12 when their parents divorced. I have zero reference. I think I have one little memory of me feeling like I was a baby and y'all were sitting right next to me and I was in y'all's bed and was just in the middle. But besides that, I have no reference of y'all being together. Um, so all I know is y'all co-parenting. So it's not like I can say, like some people can say, oh, my one parent got really bitter once they divorced or something. Like I have no comparison to see if y'all changed something and y'all's dynamic changed. I have no reference of that. Um, so, I mean, obviously, as I grew up, I started to notice things like
Mhm,
as you just become more aware of things. Um, but I mean, overall, what I could witness, you all's co-parenting style worked. Obviously, as I would learn later on, there was certain conversations or certain things that happened in the background that I didn't know about.
mhm,
So which I think is good because like the child shouldn't be like a pawn or anything in any arguments, disagreements between the parents. Um, so I think that was good that I didn't witness or was involved in any miscommunication, disagreements between the two of you. But overall, I feel like the co-parenting style was good. Um, I know the only like consistent issue that I know of because it ended up being what led to me being just with you my senior year. Um, was, which I would later find out was an inconsistency with communication between you two that I didn't know had been going on for a long time. But I know my dad would have Granny or Papa pick me up a lot or things like that. And so it wasn't great that he was, using your parents to help take care of me when I was supposed to be with him.
mhm,
And then when I would be with him, I would have, things to do, especially as I got older, things to do with my friends or whatever. I had theater, sports, whatever it was. Um, and he would again, Granny or Stacy or you would possibly need to get me there, but obviously I was with him that week or whatever. So I know that ended up we had an event that was his third strike. I don't know what the other two were, but I would find out that was his third strike. So that's why I ended up being with you all of my senior year, which ended up not really mattering because I was in quarantine. We were in quarantine for half of my senior year,
right.
um, but yeah, I don't know if you want me to go deeper into any other certain parts. But yeah.
So, if for my audience, let's just explain. Um, during my daughter's junior year, her father and I ended up having issues with consistency.
Hmm.
And that inconsistency began to interrupt the things that I needed to do for myself on the times that my daughter was supposed to be with him. It got to a point to where the inconsistency was not healthy for me. And I did not want it to be unhealthy for her. So I took it upon myself to say, she's just going to stay with me the rest of the junior year and into her senior year. It worked out simply because I was helping with things to get her into college and things like that anyway. So her moving, from house to house began to be inconsistent in what she could do as well, as far as filling out college apps and staying on top of, scholarships and things like that. So if you ever find yourself in a place in your co-parenting relationship where the inconsistency of the other parent is affecting the child as well as you, and you need to have those difficult conversations. You just got to have them. Now, I ended up taking it upon myself to say, this is where she's staying. And, when she's ready to go over there because she was driving and all that type of stuff, she could do that, anytime she wanted to go to her father's house. But the main place that she was going to be was with me because I could my schedule at that time and the way that my life was set up, like some
Yeah.
of y'all's bank accounts, I didn't have time to be going, back and forth and being interrupted like that. And his schedule was different than mine. So we ended up having to have a tough conversation. And it ended up that she just stayed with me. And like she said, like that was 2020 and 19 going into 2020. And everybody knows we went in, COVID lockdown on 2020. So everything worked out like it was supposed to. It was a tough time to go through, but it worked out for everybody in the end. So Ash, when your co-parenting situation changed,
Uh-huh.
how did you feel about that? And you said something about how your friends, I guess noticed or you told your friends
Yeah.
and they and they reacted as well. So at
Hmm.
that time, I mean, like you guys have to understand, kids have friend groups that they talk to and things like that. They see what's going on as well, and this will affect your child. So think about the friends that your child has too. So how did you feel about the whole switch in the co-parenting relationship, and how did everybody around you kind of react?
Um, I think, I mean, we've had this conversation. So in the moment, I guess I'll start with the day it happened. In the moment, I was just very confused. Because in my head, because again, I'll tell y'all, I didn't know, I did not know, I was not aware of any other issues between my parents. So I didn't know this was my father's deemed third strike and all that stuff. So for me in that moment, I'm like, all this is happening because I was supposed to go practice a lip sync with my friends. Like literally there was my school had a school-wide for Spirit Week, there was a lip sync contest. And so you could perform, win the contest, whatever. So my friends and I just did it, and we were literally, that's literally it. My dad could not take me to go do my lip sync practice. Um, I think my stepmother was like sick. I
She
think she
was sick.
was,
Stacy was sick. Yeah.
yeah, and so I was going to have to ask her. She was asleep, I think, even like when my dad was telling me that he wouldn't be able to. So then, and then that was around the time Granny couldn't drive anymore.
Mm-hmm.
Um, so then I called you. You were at some appointment.
I was at CrossFit. I was at the gym.
Yeah, you was at CrossFit and you had that was like gonna be your errands day because it was a Saturday. I think you were supposed to run
Hmm.
it, whatever. Um, and like when I so was telling my mom, I just could feel the mood shift on the phone. And I was like, ooh, what I do? I do. What did I do? And then all of a sudden, like I get off the phone with you, you were like, I'm gonna call you back. I'm like, okay. Then I'm still like preparing to possibly tell my friends I can't make it or whatever. Um, Stacy's coming down in her robe. She's like, Ashlyn, just get your stuff. Like, I'll still take you. Stacy's clearly sick. Then I'm getting a call from you. Ashlyn, get your stuff. And you just like get anything that you need for a while. And I was like, oh, okay. I was like, oh, and she was like, you're coming. Then you and Stacy was trying to call you. My dad was calling Stacy. I just remember there was a lot of different phone calls going on. Then you get there, you're pissed. I'm like, oh God. I'm like, what happened? Stacy's like, Jerry, like I can take her, like don't da, 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 da. And you're like, no, like you're like, Shannon and I already had a conversation, like it's okay, Stacy, go lay down. You're sick. I got her. Yeah. So I was like, ooh. I was like, what did I start? I was like, over me again. In my head, I'm thinking this is just for me to go to practice a lip sync. Like
Yeah, you thought I was out for no
I'm
reason.
dancing to Umbrella by Rihanna, and this has started a whole mess. Um, so yeah, then my dad, I'm practicing with my friends. My dad calls me. He's very somber. Um, you were texting me, kind of giving me the laydown of the next steps of what's going on. Um, so clearly I remember the day. I still to this day don't really know what my emotions were. I just was in the eye of the storm, just trying to just trying just trying to go about my day. Um, then I remember getting back to the apartment. My best friend at the time, Olivia, I remember calling her. I was like, "Hey, um, apparently I'm at my mom's from now on." She was like, "What happened?" I was like, "My dad's third strike. I don't." I was like, "I don't know." Said he messed up. I said, I don't know what happened. She was like, "Oh wow." I was like, "Yeah, I." Jordan was like, "What did your dad do?" I said, "Third strike, man." I said, I don't. All I know is third strike." So, I don't know. I mean, it worked that I was with you more because I was driving. I was able to drive. I didn't have a vehicle at my dad's that I could drive. So it
Right.
gave me the opportunity to, go places, do what I needed to do, whatever. Um, it gave me just more consistency just because I would be in one place. I wouldn't be one every 2 weeks at a different household. Then going into senior year,
Yeah.
that with the applications, I literally had a weekend where I was sitting there planted on a couch filling out every single college application. Um, so it gave me that. Then with quarantine, going back and forth to two houses during COVID is not safe. It's not anything. And my stepmother is a nurse, so she was still working at the hospital. So going back and forth between two homes doing that, and then we moved back to Granny's house. So
Hmm.
Granny, like going from Stacy being a nurse to Granny with her health issues, going back and forth, I would have had to stay at one house.
Yeah.
Anyway, like that just would have been the safest health option for anybody. Um, so in the long run, even though maybe not nobody, but even though it might not at the time seem like we didn't know if it would make sense, it in the long run ended up making sense. Um, but I don't know. I don't really know. I think I just kind of went with the motions and then it just became normal.
Hmm.
I think the obviously it was weird not s sometimes seeing my dad and Stacy every, for half, I guess it would be like half the month.
Hmm.
I wasn't seeing as much. I think what not sucked, but I think it's the same thing that I even deal with now, like being in Texas. Like Shania, my stepsister, she had my niece. So I didn't get to see my niece as often as I was anymore. Or I just had to make, more effort, more of a time to like go over there. I wasn't just already at the house. Or they would have to call me to tell me that she was over there or whatever. Um, so I think that was the only thing. I just really didn't get to see my niece as much. Shania was already out of the house, so I already wasn't seeing her as much anymore. Um, but yeah, I think it's not much help because I still don't fully know I can't really process what my emotions still were at that time. I just know that, I mean, I got used to it. Um, And I think for me, I'm not gonna put all my business out there, but I mentally and with school and other personal relationship things already had a trillion other things on my mind. So it was actually, I think it ended up working out.
Okay. All right.
Yeah.
And if you were to, because what I want my co-parents to understand is that children are resilient. Um, Sometimes we put things on children, adult issues on children,
Hmm.
because we do believe that they are resilient enough to handle them. But in this particular situation, the adults handle the adult issue.
Hmm.
And you are admitting right now that you don't even know what everything was that was piled on top of each other before the actual last straw,
Yeah.
right? So even though we believe that children are resilient, we still have to handle our adult issues in such a way that they don't feel like they are dealing with the adult issues and then also have to process for themselves whatever is going on with them. Because you just
Yeah.
said you had all your other stuff going on, right? If you
Yeah.
had known all of this other stuff that happened up until this point, that would have been more pressure on you in addition
Yeah.
to what you were dealing with already. So
Hmm.
our kids deal with stuff, you guys, that we have no idea a lot of times unless they tell us what it is going on in their head mentally and what's going on with them emotionally. So as the adults, we need to handle the adult issues so that they don't feel like they have to. All right. So to kind of end this segment, Ash, I want to kind of know um how do you feel about your growth process throughout this co-parenting like life that you've had? Because as you said, some of your friends, they didn't enter the co-parenting life like as divorced, individuals or as baby mamas. They didn't enter it really until someone left or they were older or something like that. You've been dealing with this the whole, like, since you can remember.
Yeah.
um how do you feel about your growth process within this from the time that you can remember to now?
Um, I think, that's a great question.
How has
I
it
think,
helped you?
um, I think when I've heard like some other people's experiences with co-parenting, I think I got to truly grow myself and decide for myself like how I felt about things and like how I am because since I didn't know what was going on with y'all and I didn't have you telling me what you didn't like about my dad, or my dad telling me what he didn't like about you or did or whatever. I didn't have anybody influencing how I felt. Um, And I know that I've known people that have had, maybe a scorned parent or somebody that's still in love or whatever the situation is, but they're hearing things about their other parent, you know. So then that can make things more confusing. So I think since I didn't have that, I just got to grow up and notice things and decide how I feel about them for myself. Um, and I mean, you and I have had conversations, so I mean, I- I've picked up some things that are correct. And, both sides, whatever. But I got to decide how I feel about my parents. I didn't have you all's opinions on me to feel whatever way I felt. I think my relationships with both of y'all has changed over the years as I've just gotten older. I think right now is probably the best spot I've been in with both of you at the same time. Um, because I mean, even when I was younger, I was a daddy's girl. I was asking you, could I go back to dad's house? I know it, I was. So I was like, hey, mom, can I go back to dad? Got here, and I'd be like, oh. Well, he's going to the Cardinals game this weekend, and I really want to go to the Cardinals game. So, um,
Right.
so I mean, it's changed. I probably talk to you more now than I do about to him about certain things, but then there's also some things with him that I can talk about. But also, you all's parenting styles were totally different. So um, I think that's probably the thing that I can say probably did affect me the most is that yes, and that's why I can say to you, and I've said this to you before, so it's not nothing new. I really don't know how y'all got married. I don't. I love you both, but I really like experiencing y'all's parenting styles. Don't understand. It was like night and day. Like I would have to like flip a switch like on and off. Um, which I mean, pros and cons. But so yeah, so that was probably the thing that I struggled with the most. And then with that, I had to just figure out, I guess, which version of me in which household is probably more of me. And then I think that's probably also what helped with me being more with you junior to senior year is I realized I was more like me in the household with you. So I got to, high school is already a lot.
Mhm.
So emotionally for people. So I think it being like my last year and a half in high school and being able to just kind of just figure out me in a space where I'm more me was helpful. Um, yeah, but that was probably the most challenging part was just, yeah, it was just two very different households. And then also like at my dad's, he remarried, and then I wasn't an only child in that household anymore. And I
Right.
was an only child. I was an only child with you. Um, and just different things. But I think all those things obviously made me who I am today. Um, but yeah, that was probably the biggest thing. Just y'all had two totally different parenting styles. And um, what I, could probably open up about, talk about I don't know, watch like or even like friends. Like you're probably closer to my friends than like my dad is. Um, my dad might have like came around a little bit when I got like older, but then it's like now those are my high school friends and you probably still talk to some of my college friends more than my dad does. So it's just different.
Okay. Well, we're going to dive into that in the next segment
This will be interesting.
because I want people to kind of hear about not necessarily a lot of times in education we talk about code switching
Hmm.
because there's a different code for every environment that you're in, whether
Yeah.
it's your professional environment with your friends, with your family. And the code typically is around your behavior, or how you present yourself, or the rules that you have, the framework that you're in those environments. And so I want people to kind of hear about how you felt about um, moving from, you said it was a light switch kind of,
Yeah, I would be like,
moving from one environment to another,
hmm
and how kids actually feel in the moment, and then what happens when you feel like you can't can't or don't want to, switch
yeah.
when you're going back and forth. So we're going to get into that, co-parents. We're going to get into that in my next episode. And right now, I'm going to let Ash off the hook. If you found this episode to be helpful at all, please put comments in the comment section down below and I will respond. Make sure you click that subscribe button, that like button, and then make sure you come back for the next episode because we'll have Ash on and we're going to delve into just a few more questions. And she's going to give us some tips, the co parents as well as the children of co parents, on how we can kind of navigate this whole thing as we're growing up in it. All right, everybody. As usual, I will say, Ash, thank you for coming with me today.
Sure.
And we're gonna do the next episode too. It'll be okay. Uh, but as I usually say, everybody, I want you to go out there and co-parent with a purpose. We'll see you on the next episode. Bye.